The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans, and welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. Along with my partner, Randy Freaking, we're pleased today to welcome Courtis Fuller. Courtis is a 44-year veteran of television broadcasting, with 35 of those years spent at WLW-TV. He recently retired as the weekend anchor, but will continue to host Let's Talk Cincinnati, a local community affairs program he has hosted since its premiere in 2019. Courtis is a member of the inaugural class of the WLWT Hall of Fame, along with other notables like Ruth Lyons, Bob Braun, and Jerry Springer. So Courtis, welcome to We Love Our Team.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I apologize that despite my belief that I know technology, I have not been able to figure this one out to get the video on. So my apologies.
Hey, Courtis, that's great. This is Randy. I've been a big fan of you over the years. I've heard you referred to as the Cal Ripken of local news broadcasting because of your longevity. But, I wanted to start off by just kind of congratulating you on how open you were about your cancer. And I thought I presume you thought it was important to the community for somebody to openly discuss what they're going through. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Well, thank you. And no one expects to hear that news. It came about very quickly. It wasn't, it was a form of chordoma, as it's called. They told me there's nothing that I did that brought it on. It's very rare. I believe 1 in a million. I wish I had lottery luck like that. Yeah. And, next thing I know, I found out late December, within about 3 weeks, they have me on the operating table. I'm on there for 5 hours, getting a tumor taken out of the back of my head. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? Yeah. And, but thank God everything worked out. We have great folks here in Cincinnati with, I was over at UC. They did great work with me. And I was out for about four or 5 months, I believe, came back just in time for opening day. And so it's been good ever since. I've gone through a few scans. And everything is clear. I had gone through 39, imagine this, 39 radiation treatments. And then they said, okay, we got it all. And all the scans have shown that nothing has reoccurred. Then but I decided now was a good time to just sort of step back from the day-to-day grind. You guys know what that's like. And but life is good. Life is good.
Good. Yeah, I know what the grind's like. Randy has stepped back. Randy's farther removed from the grind than I am, but he's a little older. He's a little older than me. So.
Well, hey, Courtis, speaking of the grind, you had the fortune or misfortune of growing up in Pittsburgh. And so I want to know how you found your way to Cincinnati and became a Reds fan.
Well, certain things are destined to happen. I would have never guessed as a kid that I would be rooting for the Reds and living in Cincinnati. I'm telling you, that was far from my mind. But my grandfather, the late John Owens, he was from a little coal mining town in West Virginia. I believe he knew that I would be in Cincinnati one day. I'll give you I'll tell you how I got to Cincinnati. I mean, I worked in Milwaukee, Peoria, Macon, and Orlando, and found my way here to Cincinnati. I thought, well, this is great. I'm close to Pittsburgh, huh? And but I got here, and I fell in love with this town. I came here right before the Reds went to the World Series in 1990, a few years before that. I watch people like Nick Clooney and Jerry Springer and Ernie Waits and so many others, and how they related to the community. And I said, wow, these guys, they're working just as hard as they did probably when they were in the business. And I followed suit. I said, if it means getting involved in the community, letting people know you're just like them, you're not some big TV guy. And the more you get involved, the more you'll love this town. And so I've fallen in love with the city, and the city's been kind to me. The greater Cincinnati area has been kind to me. But back to the story about the growing up a Pirates fan. My granddad was a Reds fan. And so now he passed away in 77, but you can imagine the long distance phone calls we had. He would call, or I would call him, and we would talk baseball. And he would rub my nose in the Reds' success of the 70s, because the Pirates played the Reds, and we could never get over the hump until 1979. Yeah. But it was probably the most frustrating thing as a kid growing up as a Pirates fan. We had a great team. The Pirates had a great team, but the Reds had a great team too. Now, and every time we played the Reds in the playoffs, we lost, except in that 79 series. And I said, what is going on? This is insane. It's 1972, I thought we had them. We had just won the World Series. We actually had a better team in 72 than we did in 71. And we're playing the Reds. Well, it was still early. That's 72. I said, we're going to knock them out. Everyone knows Game 5. My dear friend now, Johnny Bench, and I remind him all the time, he gets up, he hits that ball to right field, right over Clemente's head. Yeah. Little did I know at the time that would be the last image we saw of the great Roberto Clemente. And then the rest is history. Bob Moose throws a wild pitch, the winning run comes in, and the Reds win the playoffs. I tell you, and Johnny says I need to get help for this. I mean, this thing lingered with me for years. I mean, it was the worst sports image or sports event that happened in my life. I mean, I lost a lot of sleep over that. But to think now, this team that I really hated, I hated the Reds because of that great rivalry, probably one of the best rivalries in sports between the Reds and the Pirates in the 70s. To find my way here to Cincinnati, and now just recently I became a member of the board of directors for the Reds Hall of Fame. And I said, my grandfather is probably up in heaven, cracking up, saying, look at this old Pirates fan now, a big rooter for the great Cincinnati Reds. Isn't that something?
Well, it's so funny, to listen to, you as a Pittsburgh fan talk about that moment when Bench hit the home run, because I can literally remember where I was. I was 14 years old, sitting in our living room, on our rather small black and white TV. Or no, I guess we had color by that point. But just watching that ball go, and then I can imagine your pain. The only thing I can say is, as Bengal fans, we've kind of had our share of pain inflicted by the Steelers. So the Hill fumble in that playoff game was a night that will long remain in my memory.
I know. As a matter of fact, I was at the station that night watching the game, and when I walked away from the TV because I said, "Wow, the Bengals they got it this time. They got the Steelers, and it's going to be a great night in the city." And then the rest
Oh
is
boy,
history.
that was so bad. I literally did not sleep that night. I had to put on some series on Netflix, and I probably watched that until it was like 5 in the morning. And I got up and I thought, God, was that a nightmare?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
But it's the same feeling you had in 1972. Who was your favorite player as a kid,
Well,
Curtis?
you heard me mention Clemente, and he is still um, a big idol. Everybody wants to be like someone, but Clemente, even as a kid, a young kid, I watched this guy. He was sort of like Veda Pinson here. He was neat. He wore his uniform neat. The way he walked, the way he got up to the plate, and he had all these funny moves. He'd stretch his neck, and the way he would stand. But then, obviously, you realize off the field his humanitarian efforts. When I met his son a few years ago, as a matter of fact, I met his sons, both of them, when they were at the baseball game, the All-Star game here a couple of years ago. The first thing I said to him, I said, "What is most impressive about your dad's life is here. It's 50 years since his death." I said, "I've never read one negative thing about Roberto Clemente, and I've read a lot, and that doesn't mean that he was perfect, but this guy was as good as it gets, and so he is my all-time idol, bar none." And in some ways, and I say this with a lot of humility, in some ways I've tried to model my life after his, helping people. I wanted to play baseball, but that didn't work out. Um, but yeah, Clemente, bar none. That was and to you come into my home, and sure enough, the first thing you see is this big, painting of Roberto Clemente, and then throughout the house you will find uh, images and memorabilia of Roberto Clemente. I just went to the Clemente Museum back in June for the first time. I was attending my high school reunion, 50th, believe it or not, high school reunion. And I visited the Clemente Museum. And if you ever get to Pittsburgh, it's one of those things you should go see. I mean, our Hall of Fame here in Cincinnati is the best by far. And I don't say that just because I'm
Yeah,
um,
that
now
I'll have to
a,
put that on my list. That
let's
sounds
see,
awesome. David Moranis wrote a really good biography of, you know, he's written some other really good ones. But yeah, I agree. I mean, reading that biography, I don't think he was trying to sugarcoat anything. He's just a great guy. He was really. I mean, I think he just historically might have been one of the first Latin American. I mean, certainly the highest and first and highest profile Latin American. I think probably. I
Yeah.
can't think of too many others. You know, right off the top of my head, that would have been contemporaries of him.
Hey, Curtis, some of our younger listeners may not realize there was a predecessor to Three Rivers Stadium and PNC Park named Forbes Field, and I wonder if you ever attended games at Forbes Field.
absolutely. I was in walking distance to Forbes Field. I grew up in this area called the Hill District of Pittsburgh, and Forbes Field was out in an area called Oakland. And if people are familiar with the University of Pittsburgh, it's right out there near Pitt. And so back then we walked everywhere. So I would walk to games over at Forbes Field, and it was probably had the same flavor as Old Crosley here. Just an old ballpark built in the early 1900s, I believe, and just a great old ballpark. it smelled like a ballpark. It looked like an old ballpark. And so I would go to games there all the time. And as I was saying, uh, that's where I've got an autograph of Roberto Clemente. I went down and got an autograph of his, and couldn't have been more than 8 years old. And I still have that autograph today that Clemente signed on just a little tiny piece of paper. And so Forbes Field, in relationship to the new ballpark, I mean, they're across town. One is in a place called Oakland. The other is in a place called the North Side. And it very similar to the way Old Crosley was located in relationship to where Great American Ballpark is now. But it was a great old ballpark. Large,
I was
too. I
kind of
mean, it was
wondered
a
about that because I'm sorry, Curtis. I
oh
always
no, I
kind of
was saying
wondered
it
because
was a huge ballpark. And baseball historians have said if someone like Willie Stargell had played someplace else, he would have probably had maybe at least 100, maybe even 200 more home runs. This place
wow.
was huge. Dead center. I don't remember the stats right off the top of my head, but dead center. You better be a big, strong guy to knock it out of Forbes Field.
Oh, it was like 430 feet to dead center.
Yeah,
So,
something like that. Yeah.
I just remember watching the videos of Mazeroski's home run in 1960, and it just seemed like I don't know. It just seemed like it was not located right in the downtown. You know, a downtown setting. It just looked like trees and that sort of thing were all around the
Yeah,
outside.
and again, as I said, it's right near the University of Pittsburgh, and so it was in an area where there were a lot of people, but it was just blocked off a little bit. It wasn't in downtown, but it was in an area where um, people could easily get to it by bus or on foot. You know, um, and for me as a kid, of course, I was walking.
That's awesome. Well, PNC Park is beautiful. We've been to a number of parks, as has Randy, and I just think they just did such a nice job. They incorporate the skyline, over the right field wall, and it's just pretty. It's just a pretty park.
Yeah, Great American is a beautiful ballpark as well. But everything that I've read, PNC Park has gotten high marks. I've only been there a couple of times, and really enjoyed the experience. But Great American doesn't take a back seat to it's a beautiful ballpark. It's hard to believe. Here it is, 2024, that ballpark is already 20,
Yeah.
20 plus years
20
old.
years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Riverfront, when you think about it, it was only 30 years old when they knocked it down. Same way with
Yeah.
Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. And you see stadiums like up in Chicago and, of course, Boston. They're still around all these years. And, I know change is good, but um, in some ways, I hate that. I'm glad we got away from the big round Three Rivers and Riverfront, but I miss the flavor of those old. That's why you go up to Chicago and there's the joy is just going into Wrigley. I mean, it
Yeah.
just takes you back to a different time, and I wish we still had that here in Cincinnati.
Well, I think the interesting thing about just the number of new parks and the lack of the older ones is the third oldest National League park is Coors Field, which was
Wow,
which was built in
That's
the early
incredible.
'90s.
that is incredible.
It's it's Wrigley, Dodger Stadium, and Coors Field are the three oldest parks. So
Wow.
it just goes, yeah, it's a testament to the number of new ones that are out there.
Well, hey, Curtis, you came to WLW, I think, or WLWT in the late
Uh-huh.
1980s. And I'm wondering who you rooted for in the 1990 playoffs when the Pirates played the Reds.
Oh, you're going to call me out, huh? Well, obviously I was conflicted. Having lived down south before I moved up here, I had actually gotten away from sports. You go out and you just want to enjoy the good weather of Florida and even down in Atlanta. But so I was conflicted in that 1990 because the Pirates, really, I hadn't been rooting for the Pirates in the 80s. Um, I was just getting to know the Reds as a person who lived here in town. So when I went to, of course, the Reds had what a great year. I mean, they went wire to wire. So um, I must tell you, I was a little conflicted because the Pirates had a great team that year. That was the year of Bonds and Bonilla, and they had this pitcher called pitcher. What was his name? Drayback, I think. Doug Drayback.
Yep.
Boy, I
Yep.
should talk to you
Yep.
guys more often because honestly, my memory is good talking sports. And so
Correct.
they had a great team, and the Reds had a great team. But the Reds team was so much fun that year. Oh, it was so much fun. The Nasty Boys and the rest. And so, yeah, my heart was still with the Pirates. I wouldn't kid you, but it was fun becoming a Reds fan in 1990. And so again, when they went wire to wire, I remember going to the World Series game that came here, and so I was jumping up and down when the Reds won that year, like everyone else. But as the playoffs started, I must admit I was a little conflicted.
That 1990 team, that was an easy team to root for, man. They just had characters up in, starting from Marge Schott and Shotzi to
Oh
Padella
yeah,
to
yeah.
the Nasty Boys and Sabo. I mean, there was a lot of personality on that.
They were
Hey, Jack.
so much fun.
Hey, Jack, our younger audience has told us before we got to get out of the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to jump to the 90s and maybe early 2000s. And Curtis, who were some of your favorite Reds players since 1990?
Oh,
Even going
okay.
up to today.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we've had some great players. I mean, sometimes at the end of the year, you look at the wins and losses, and you sort of forget how good some of the players were and still are. I mean, clearly, you have to start with people like Hall of Famer Barry Larkin, Eric Davis. How can you have to include Griffey when he came to town. Sean Casey. I mean, and still like Sean Casey. I don't get a chance to see him that often, but what a great player. What a great ambassador for our city. People will remember Jose Rio. How much fun he was. Then you think of people like I'm trying to think. Joey Votto, of
Brandon
course.
Phillips.
Brandon Phillips, Joey Votto. The list goes really on, all the way up until now. I mean, Hunter Green is the real deal, and people might not be able to really appreciate this kid, but to me, I think he is the real deal, and I hope he can stay with the Reds and continue to grow. But I love Hunter Green, and as I said, Votto, you can't take anything away from Votto.
So you did a great job a couple weeks ago, Curtis, emceeing the Cincinnati Society of Professional Journalists Hall of Fame induction. They inducted a number of longtime sportscasters: Denny Jansen, George Vogel, John Popovich, and one of the inductees was Wayne Box Miller, who does the Bengals pre and post game. And you told a story about visiting Eric Davis with Wayne Miller. I was wondering if you'd share that story with our listeners.
Well, everybody calls Wayne Box. I still don't know how he came up with that box. But anyway, so we've been friends the entire time I've been in town, and congratulations to all of the inductees. That was a unique night, and as I said at the podium, I said, "We'll never see this again. We will never see this again." But back in the early '90s or so, Wayne was working with players. He approached the Reds and said, "Hey, you have these players who might need some help navigating into the community, getting to know community organizations and things like that." I thought it was a great idea. He worked with several players, and one of the people he became friends with and worked with him and got him involved in community projects was the great Eric Davis. And so one time he calls and he says, "Hey, why don't you ride out to a friend's house with me? We won't be out there that long." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." I said, "Who is it?" He says, "Eric Davis." I said, "I sure will." We go out to Eric Davis's house, and at this time, his mom was visiting him, and she can cook. I mean, this is a lady who could she probably could just cook a slice of bread and it would taste good. And we stayed out there and just laughed and talked. Eric is a great guy. You wish people fans could see some of these players away from the spotlight, because as the two of you know, most, if not all of them, are just really nice people. I mean, it's rare that you meet someone who is just, standoffish or just a bad person. I mean, most athletes that I've met away from the game, just wonderful people. And Eric falls into that category. I mean, I stay in touch with him via social media. I haven't seen him in a while. I thought he was supposed to be at that event, but couldn't, and did it by video. But just a real nice guy. And but we did not want to leave Eric's house. I think they had to eventually throw us out because we said, well, we could spend the night, and I'm saying this jokingly, we could spend the night and she could fix us breakfast.
It's always fun to see those guys with their moms, because if they get a big head, the mom will cut them down to size a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, hey, Courtis, I'm a big opening day fan, and I know Channel 5 has broadcast the games the last few years. And I'm just wondering, what kind of production, is that just, tell us about the Channel 5 opening day. They televise the parade, then the game.
Yeah,
it's all involved?
It is a big deal. It is high on the list, coupled with the Flying Pig. Those two are probably our biggest productions of the year. I'm talking off the top of my head, but yeah, it is one of those that everyone is involved, and it's a fun day. Back years ago, we would do events. TV stations would do events, and we would get out of the studio and we would interact with the public. And now it's not as much, unfortunately. And so something like the Flying Pig or opening day, where everyone is on the same page, is fun. And so, yeah, across the board, everyone is out and about. This year we were fortunate enough that we were able to broadcast the game as well as do the opening day um, parade. And so we knew we had a lot of eyeballs on us watching Channel 5 throughout the day, which is good. But it's just a wonderful time. I got out there and, we line up down there at Findlay Market. And the first person I see when I get down there was George Foster. He's down there. He's going to ride. He's going to ride in one of the floats. And George is another great guy. I mean, wow. I love George Foster. And so, yeah, that's a fun event. And I can't imagine anyone not attending the opening day parade if they've lived in Cincinnati for any length of time. But if you haven't, you got to experience it at least once. It is the best. To me, it is probably the best event that Cincinnati puts on. I know that we do. We just had Riverfest, and as I said, we're going to have Blink coming up in the city soon. Cincinnati is an events town where you have these things like those that I mentioned, Oktoberfest. People get out and about, and they really love on each other in ways that you would, sometimes you listen to the news and you think it's chaos out there. And then when you see these type of events, or if you go down to the ballpark, you go down to a Reds game and everyone is on the same page. You feel like you've been pushed back in time some way to a different time. And I wish we could take some of that energy and make it happen more often, because it is the best of not only Cincinnati, but the best of people getting along with each other. And at Bengals games too, I know that sometimes there have been a couple of incidents, but overall, I mean, you go to a Bengals game and the tailgating, it is just a wonderful experience. That again, I wish that we did that more often.
I think it was John Arardi that told us. Lenny Harris said, he's talking about opening days and other places, and he said nobody else has an elephant march down the street or something like
that. Hey, Courtis, how about your daughters? I know you were honored this year at the Talbert House as the Community Father of the Year, and Jack was heavily involved in that event. And Jack's been associated with the Talbert House for a number of years. I think he might currently be the president. How about your two daughters? Did they play baseball or softball? And are they Reds fans or baseball fans?
I'll tell you about my oldest daughter first. She is a doctor down in Atlanta. Just an amazing young woman. And she has spent most of her time now running. She is a runner. She has run marathons in Italy, Orlando, Hawaii. She just ran the New York Marathon last year. And in a couple of weeks, she'll be running the Chicago Marathon that I hope to make it up to. She's a doctor. She got her doctorate degree when she was 25 years old. I mean, she really is a superstar, and I'm so proud of her. My youngest daughter is a student. She wants to be a teacher. She is now in her third year up at Miami University, and she was there with me that particular night of the award, and just so talented. I mean, in 4 semesters, she has made the dean's list twice and the president's list twice. President's list is straight A's. And I'm thinking, I don't know, these kids must have come down from Mars, because I was far from a straight A student. So I'm proud of both of them. My youngest daughter is a huge Reds fan, because We go to a lot of games. She loves it. At first, I thought she loved it just because you go there and you can eat as many peanuts and food and all the things. And a couple of times we've been fortunate enough to sit in diamond seats. Oh, if she wasn't a baseball fan before, she became a baseball fan when she sat in those diamond seats. Um, my oldest daughter, we would go to baseball, probably not as much. She grew up in Atlanta, and I remember taking her. I remember flying down, and I said, "I'm going to take you to a World Series game." And so we went to. I think the Braves were playing the Yankees that year. It was the All Century that year that they celebrated the All Century team, and so we went to that. And the last time I was in Atlanta, we went to the new Braves Stadium um, and enjoy the game. So she loves baseball, I think, because I love baseball, and of course, they know my love for Clemente and everything. But yeah, both are sports fans. I probably not as big as me, but
Yeah.
Well, we know your youngest daughter's getting a fine education at Miami of Ohio. That's
yeah,
being
yeah.
a 1980 graduate of that institution.
He's won the first, Jack. Hey,
That's right.
Jack, why don't we play some word association like we sometimes do on the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Curtis, how about Marge shot?
One word? Am I allowed just one
Now,
word?
can you do it in one word?
You
Wow.
can you can elaborate, Curtis.
I would call Marge, or I call Mrs. Shots, Mrs. Shot. I always called her Mrs. Shot. I never called her Marge. Um, Complex. She really was a nice person every time I was around her. Just a wonderful person who loved the Reds. Obviously, some of the things that attributed to her of saying and that's unacceptable, obviously. But I remember I had approached the Reds in 1997. I know that this was word association, but for Marge, I wanted to expand Mrs. Shot. Um, I approached the Reds about celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson, and they did. We had a big event down at the stadium. As a matter of fact, people who see the 42 up on the sort of the ring of honor up there for the Reds, that's how that
Yeah.
42 got up there. That was not something that Major League Baseball. We put that up before Major League Baseball actually officially recognized the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson. And we were standing on the field, and I'm standing, or I take that back. We were standing in the area where we were having like a dinner reception, and I just said to her, I said, "Thank you." I said, "I appreciate you having us down here and allowing us to do this." And she said, "Oh, of course, that's." And I said to her at that time, I said, "Mrs. Schott, I might be out of line here, but and please forgive me." I said, "But I don't know if everyone in your circle has has your best interest at heart." And I said, "Just be mindful of that." And she took it in stride, and she said, "Thank you." And what I meant by that is, I wish there had been people around Mrs. Schott who could have been more protective of her, because her philanthropy throughout the city was great. She loved the Reds, as you know, and I hate that you know some of the good that she did in this town will be overshadowed by remarks that she made, obviously unacceptable remarks that she attributed to her. So that's why I say complex.
Yeah.
Complex. Yeah.
No, that's an interesting perspective. I don't know if you're aware of this, Curtis, but Jackie Robinson's last public appearance was at Riverfront Stadium in 1972.
I do know that. In fact,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think of his name. Um, there was, shame on me that I can't remember his name because we worked together. He was a radio reporter for old WCIN radio.
Okay.
And he walks up to Jackie Robinson, who was coming down the tunnel after the game, and he asked him a few questions. That interview that was conducted is believed to be Jackie's last interview, public interview. That interview is in Cooperstown. It's in the Hall of Fame. And my
Oh, wow.
dear friend,
Wow.
yeah, my dear friend, and I believe I still have a copy of that someplace in the midst of all of my junk that I have. That's why I try to get so organized. But my dear friend, Ernie Waite Sr., was very good friends with Jackie Robinson. Mr. Waits was the first Black broadcaster here in Cincinnati, and as everyone knows, during the time that Jackie was being considered for a position with the Dodgers, and then once he got on the field, a lot of newspaper reporters, particularly in the African American community, old Pittsburgh Courier and others, Chicago Defender, and even here in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Herald, they were very supportive of Jackie and gave him, as much good press as they could. And when he would come to town, they befriended him, and so Mr. Waits would always tell me these great stories about Jackie Robinson, and as a matter of fact, Mr. Waits' son, Ernie Waits Jr., who is fortunately still with us, is Jackie Robinson's godson. So, Jackie Robinson has a lot of connections to Cincinnati, and thank God that his wife, Rachel, is still with us. I think she's 102 and still
Amazing.
beautiful,
Yeah.
and still as active as she can be at 102 years old. Imagine that. So,
Hey,
Branch
Kurt.
Rickey, Branch Rickey sent a scout to watch Jackie Robinson, Clyde Sukforth, and he sat next to Rachel Robinson and scouted Jackie Robinson. And he came back and told Branch Rickey, he said, if he's smart enough to marry her, he's good enough to play for the Dodgers.
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Curtis. Hey, Curtis, how about word association? I'm going to pick one out of the air and say Dusty Baker, who was one of my favorite managers of all time.
Oh, one of my favorites too. Dusty is brilliant. Baseball royalty, in my opinion. Here's a guy who, played alongside some of the greats when he was with the Dodgers and with Atlanta, and a name that might not, you think of Aaron and Mays and Clemente and others and Bench, but Dusty, just a brilliant baseball mind, and we saw that when he was a manager. One of the mistakes that I think, and I'm not sure of what led to him leaving Cincinnati, but and that's not to take away anything from the managers we've had since him, but I hated that Dusty Baker left Cincinnati. We had won 102 games or something like that, and we missed going to the World Series, in a freak way. I mean, it was crazy how we won those first two
Yeah.
games out in San Francisco, and all we needed was one more game, and we couldn't get it back here at home. So, but yeah, brilliant baseball guy. And from everything I've read, and I've only met him a couple of times, and don't know him that well, but seems like a great human being as well.
So we're
Do
going
you
to put
like
you on
ice
the
cream,
spot.
Curtis?
Go ahead, Randy. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah, who doesn't?
Do you like ice cream?
Of course.
What's your choice as between Grater's, Aglameses, and United Dairy Farmer?
Oh wow. Oh wow. Wow. Probably Graders. It is a special ice cream. I probably go to UDF more, just because it's more convenient. But Graders. We had a place growing up in Pittsburgh called Isley's. As a matter of fact, the Klondike bars. I believe that's where they originated, at Isley's in Pittsburgh. And
Huh.
so, I'll have to go with Graders with a check to the other two as well.
Yeah, well,
Now,
those are the kind of hard-hitting questions
wasn't
we
that
throw out to our
politically
guests.
correct?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, well, Curtis, listen, we appreciate your time with us today, and just best of luck in this new chapter. And we'll keep watching Let's Talk Cincinnati, and we'll see you pop up right on TV now and then.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And we will set up a time. Maybe we could do what we just did on Let's Talk Cincy. Maybe we'll just talk baseball in general, and just have a casual conversation. I think, look, I love all sports, but there is something about baseball that that just resonates with me, and I think can be so inspirational, especially to young people. And in this next chapter of life, especially now working with the Hall of Fame, I hope to get more young people excited about the game. Not excited about one particular player, but just excited about the game. You guys are like me, and I'll wrap it up. But you guys are probably like me. You remember sitting by the radio. Most of us listen to these games on the radio, and just falling in love with this game. I would listen to Bob Prince, like people here in town would listen to Al Michaels and Joe Nuxall, and of course, the great Marty Brennaman. And how could you not love this game? How could you not love this team? It's a perfect name for this podcast, because when you hear, go back and listen to some of those games that Marty, and that's not to take away from the current roster of broadcasters, but when you hear Joe and Marty talking on the radio during a Reds game, whether they are winning or losing, how can you not love this game? The flavor of it, the history of it. And so I really want to get kids excited about baseball, because it's something that you do outdoors. You just have fun. Put the cell phone thing down, get away from the TV set, and just breathe in a little excitement and joy. And that's what I hope to do in this next phase of life, I guess.
Hey, Jack, you are the trivia guru. With your permission, can I ask Curtis a trivia question? It's one of my favorite trivia questions.
Of course.
Curtis, who was the only player in Major League Baseball history to hit a walk-off inside the park grand slam?
Oh, you know what? That's an easy one. It was Roberto Clemente, 1955 or 56, somewhere in that neighborhood. I believe.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And Um, yeah, he was young in his career. Um, let me ask you
I mean,
guys?
that's just incredible to think about.
That
Oh
is.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
amazing.
I mean,
Inside the park, walk off home run.
yeah. I
I
mean,
think
how did
Ellie might do it someday.
he might. But you guys tell me. I'm so used to asking questions. Tell me your your favorite baseball memory as a fan, or just as growing up watching it. What's your favorite memory?
I'm almost guilty to say this, Curtis, but it was Bench's home run in '72. I don't mean to rub salt in the wound, but that's my honest answer.
Well,
Hey, Curtis, the good
uh
news is good news is I'm going to respect your allegiance to the Pirates, and I'm going to say it was the night when Pete came back as player manager in 1984,
oh wow,
which I
yeah.
think is still the greatest sporting event in Cincinnati sports history.
Hmm. Yeah,
Maybe,
both.
arguably.
Yeah, both of those. I mean, we could go on and on. I know, but the bench home run in '72, it really, it might not nationally get the same credit as I know they give a lot of play to Mazeroski's home run against the
Yeah,
Yankees in '60, and it does. But that bench home run, maybe if the home run had won the game, it
yeah,
probably would get more recognition nationwide. Had it won the game, it might have been the greatest home run ever. Um, but it was a defining moment because everybody watching that knew after he hit that home run what was going to happen. You just, as a Pirate fan, you hope that it wouldn't, but as a Reds fan, they had a magical team, and the Reds. You go up and down that, and we're approaching. It's hard to believe that we are approaching next year will be 50 years. Can you believe that? 50 years since um, the the epicenter of the Big Red Machine, and fortunately, we have most of um, the nucleus of that team still together. Unfortunately, Joe won't be with us next
right.
year, but um, I hope by then. I doubt it, but I hope by then Major League Baseball makes a move with Pete. It's unfair. It's time. It's up. The game has. Especially now with everybody betting on baseball. Like, okay, we get it. And, that was a cardinal rule. You don't gamble. You have anything to do with gambling and baseball. As a matter of fact, you guys might not remember this, but Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle were banned from baseball for a few
Yeah,
years because of their affiliation with a couple of casinos in Atlantic City. They were with those
yep.
casinos legitimately because they needed, baseball players didn't make the same money. So they were with, and Bowie Kuhn was the commissioner. And he said, you got to step away from baseball. You can't be associated with Major League Baseball. And then, of course, once they finished their role as spokesman.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, that is the perfect way to end the program. I'm sorry we didn't have our studio audience today. They would have given that a standing ovation, but I think we ought to at least strike up the band. Thank you, Courtis.
Thank you, Courtis. Appreciate it, man. All right. We're there, man. We're there. Thank you,
All
sir.
right, let's strike up the band. See you, Courtis.
See ya. Bye-bye.
The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.